Okay. Good afternoon, everyone that's joining us, and good morning, depending on where you are joining us from. And it's a very beautiful day today, and I'm very glad to welcome all of you who are joining us for the first time, and those that have joined us in the previous editions. My name is Marlon Zakeo. I head the Policy and Programs Unit at the Southern Africa Trust based in Johannesburg. And for the last couple of months, we have been every Wednesday welcoming all of you to the weekly webinar series that we call Society Talks. And this webinar series was birthed before the coronavirus pandemic broke out, with the specific focus of bringing together a diverse range of voices from civil society, from the policymaking sphere, from business, from philanthropy, and other walks of life to engage, share knowledge and experience on some of the key topics that concern us as citizens and that concern the development of the African continent at large. During the last few months, we've addressed issues and had experiences from people that come from the informal cross-border trade sector. We have discussed issues that concern food security on the continent. We have had views from civil society actors. We have had views from women in the private sector. And we have also heard from the young people from the continent. And because of how that particular first edition of the discussion we had with youth from across the continent, we thought that it would be very important at this stage to have a second bite of the cherry and invite to share with us again a group of fascinating young people that are working in different parts of the continent as advocates for change and transformation as we proceed to confront some of the problems that are bedeviling our societies. And so here we are today with three young people that I will ask to introduce themselves and the work that they're doing. And we will be engaged in the next 1 hour. In the first 30 minutes, we will have an interactive conversation, and we'll be inviting the audience to please share with us any comments or questions that you have. You can send through the chat boxes if you're watching on YouTube or if you're watching on Zoom. If you can also send an email to comms@southernafricatrust.org. That's COMMS@southernafricatrust.org. So without further ado, I will start to introduce in this order and ask you, my fellow panelists, to share your insights and to also share on your experiences where you are working. On the panel today, we will have Essie Otchere, and Essie is a recent graduate from the Africa Leadership University in Mauritius, and she's currently working as a recruitment associate at Meltwater Entrepreneurial School. Essie, I would also, when you get your chance to speak, ask you to please say a little bit more on the work that you are doing. Essie will be joined by Lemogang Senwelo, who is one of the new age voices that is joining us live from Gaborone in the beautiful Republic of Botswana. And Lemogang is an ardent philanthropist and humanist who is championing the Pereil group, which is a conglomerate that she has been at the center of establishing. And she will share with us the work that she does with her associates in Botswana as part of bringing change and transforming the lives of many that are living in that country in Southern Africa. And then last but not least is Emanual Marfo. Emanual is a Ghanaian national who is a 5-time award winner in philanthropy and social enterprise. Emanual is a youth mentor, is a social innovator, and part of the global change makers. Emanual is also a PhD candidate in philanthropy and social investment, and a whole lot more of things that he will share with us today. So just to start off our conversation for today, Essie, we want to start off, of course, by acknowledging that when this year started, most people, especially young people, referred to it as the year 2020. This was the year that was supposed to bring so much joy, so much excitement, and so much prosperity that the world has never seen. But here we are. We've been fed a diet of dark and miserable news week after week, after week after week, right? But even before then, there were lots of exciting things that were happening on the continent. And in the midst of this dark news, most societies are trying to find a solution and a way out to say, out of this darkness, what is the sort of future that that will emerge. And sometimes for us to be able to look for those solutions, it's important that we look within ourselves and to look back at those things that made us excited about waking up in the morning, engaging with our communities, and talk about those things. Unfortunately, with the advent of the COVID-19, a lot of social ills have also been emerging. Um, After these lockdowns, there's been a lot of increase in gender-based violence across our communities. There's been an upsurge in crime across our communities. And so these are some of the things that are hurting our communities. But in that respect, we also look to young people as providers of solutions to some of these things. So, Essie, I want to start with you to just ask about your work and the landscape of social entrepreneurship in your local context.
All right, thank you so much, Marlon. As you said, my name is Issy and I'm from Ghana, currently working in Ghana as well. I graduated from the African Leadership University not so long ago, and I must say that it was a very eye-opening experience the entire 4 years there, because I got to meet with and interact with and befriend actually Africa's future entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers. So I currently work at the Meltwater Entrepreneurial School of Technology, MEST Africa, and I'm working at the forefront in finding and recruiting people who have a lot of talent and a lot of passion for problem solving and technology, and bringing them into our training program where they can refine their ideas and refine their personalities, and then eventually go on to create a product that solves a problem that is close to their hearts. And then those who qualify get a seed fund sponsored by the Meltwater Foundation, and then go on to join the incubator where they can grow their ideas and actually make a change and solve a real problem. And so my work mainly has to do with finding the best talent because it's a fully sponsored program. And so we need the best people to come join us. And it's also it's Pan-African. And so it's not exclusive to Ghana. So we do have hubs in Nairobi, Lagos, Abidjan, and Cape Town. Um, so we encourage young, vibrant, entrepreneurs to apply for the program, come and then make a change. So aside my current work, I have also had some experience in entrepreneurship, um, though quite small, I must say. I started a business on campus, a spa which ran for a year and a half, and I got to see a, like a glimpse of what the entrepreneurial life looks like. When I came back home, I continued to uh, find my own niche in the Accra market. So with the help of a few other co-founders, I run a tourism startup as well, which mainly aimed at finding the best narrative, the best way to package the Ghanaian culture and present to foreigners who say are trying to explore what the Ghanaian culture looks like. That and a bit of creative, I must say, a creative angle as well. I make T-shirts, try and make them unique and find a special niche market as well to sell to. So that's just a little bit of what I do on the side as an entrepreneur, while also finding and spearheading the recruitment for the MEST Africa program.
Thank you so much, Essie, for that introduction and for sharing on the work that you do in your community, but also what the entrepreneurial spirit that you've brought also on your campus at the ALU in Mauritius. I want to go to Lemogang and also just hear from you, Lemogang, about the work that you do, and just also paint a picture on what the social entrepreneurship landscape looks like in Botswana at the moment.
All right. Good afternoon again, guys. My name is sorry, Lemogang Senwelo. I currently run a company called Connect Circle. Connect Circle facilitates foreign direct investments in Africa. So what happens is we bring in foreign investors into Africa or into Botswana. And then we also do an annual event called Africa Youth Entrepreneurs Summit, where we get about 15 young entrepreneurs annually to come to Botswana and discuss different issues that affect the entrepreneurial environment in the continent. By far, we've hosted 3 events. We call them IES, Africa Youth Entrepreneur Summit. So we've hosted at least 3 now, where we've invited over 40 about 35 African countries, where now we've managed to build an ecosystem of those countries that we've already hosted. And yeah, we're doing quite a huge job regarding getting all these entrepreneurs into one space where we can now start, talking issues around entrepreneurship, talking issues around philanthropy, talking issues about around getting Africa somewhere. We want to be at a point where Africa is in a position to compete with the rest of the world. We want to stop following other countries and other continents' agendas. So that's basically one of our main points. And then we also do a mentorship program and leadership program where we get at least 30 young people every month. And then we do mentorship for them. We do leadership lessons. We do governance, corporate governance lessons for them as well. So yeah, I've been working together with the Ministry of Youth here to actually put that to fruition. So yeah.
Thank you so much. That was short and precise in this time, and we will get back to you, Lemogang, on some of the issues that you have raised. So I want to switch on now to introduce Emanual, and ask you, Emanual, as well as what our fellow panelists have done to shed a little bit more light on who you are and the work that you do in Ghana. But in doing so, Emanual, I also want to get your sense on, so that we don't assume that everybody knows what social entrepreneurship is, for you to share with us from your own understanding. What is this animal that is called social entrepreneurship? I'll tell you that for myself, without revealing my age at the moment, as a child growing up in the 80s and the early 90s, when you grow up and you're now seeking to find your way in the world, the first thing you look for is a company that will employ you. So that was the holy grail. You go to school, you get your educational qualifications, and depending on where you stay, you look at what's the biggest company that's in your area. If it's a bread making company, if it's a construction company, if it's a mining company, and that will be your future decided. Is this something that relates to you in your context and the young people that you work with, Emanual?
Thank you, everyone. I'm Emanual, like mentioned. I currently study at Vice University doing a PhD in philanthropy, but as a full-time student, and currently working with the community, which is called Global Shippers Community. As a Global Shippers community is made up of young, talented, exceptional social entrepreneurs under the World Economic Forum. And so once you identify in a city that you are contributing to the development or impact in the community, then you become a member. So the newest community under the Global Shippers in Ghana was founded by myself with other team. Now we have 20 members working as social entrepreneurs. And so before I started my PhD, I became a full-time student. I was working with a hub which I co-founded, which is a grassroots hub. And the grassroots hub is a social impact hub that supports social entrepreneurs to develop business models meeting the sustainable development goals. So the main baseline is to identify young people who are passionate to develop businesses to meet some of these goals. So as on the Global Shippers portfolio, working at also the same time at the hub, I sit on the hub providing technical support because of the time issues. But before that, I was more particularly involved in developing the program and then also identifying partners for the hub. So I've worked with various institutions in the past 10 years, and before I picked the Young Philanthropies Award in Ghana the first time 3 years ago. We're working with young other organizations and to help them also develop models for social entrepreneurship. And then if we say social entrepreneurship, what does that mean? We do understand that businesses start to make profit. One of the goals of a business is to make profit, but do we also have the desire that, or once we make profit, we're also giving back to the community? That is to say, an impact model where you have the TBL, triple bottom line approach, where you are impacting the community environmentally, socially, and also economically. So you develop a business model with the idea that you're going to impact the community, not just the profits. So it's just a cut line between a non-profit and a business. So you are not, some register as non-profit organizations. In Ghana, there's no registration model for social entrepreneurs. They register as limited by guarantee as NGO. But the main thing is that they make profit and they give back to the community. So that's how come people say that they are social entrepreneurs. So a social entrepreneur, it's just like also an entrepreneur business, but the different things that they are also working towards making impact in the community, giving back, and also affecting lives in one way or the other. So this on one thing I'll add again is that just like AC said, AC organization is also in one ecosystem in Ghana where we have Hubs Network, and hubs are coming together as social enterprise network groups that are working to impact the communities in Ghana. So they have various aspects. Some are working in the tourism aspect, some are working in fashion, some are working in the technology. So at the moment, some of the hubs are also finding ways to also bring into web technology and technology into the maybe I would say the various industries because of the COVID-19. So you can find someone doing fashion in fashion industry, somebody in the tourism industry, and the person now wants to see how they can connect technology to the work they do. So maybe I'll end with here so that I'll add some few things. But I would say that social entrepreneurship has become one emerging area in Ghana. People used to do that, but it's like now most non-profit organizations are even seeing social entrepreneurship as one sustainable model for their businesses. Now they don't rely on grants. They want to find means to actually mobilize funding on their own by coming up with some social enterprise business models for themselves.
Thank you so much, Emanuel, for painting that picture for us and for helping us to understand what social entrepreneurship is for those of us who might be coming across that term for the first time. And just linking from where you are, I want to bring Essie back into the conversation, and particularly just check in with you, Essie, to say what are the key social challenges that you have identified in your community even before the COVID-19, and what kind of innovative solutions have you or the people that you work with or the campus that you've been in talking about on how can we overcome these social challenges?
All right, thank you so much. So I'm going to speak briefly on the organization I'm currently working with, NEST. And so I don't necessarily directly work with the founders or like the actual startups. However, I do hear a lot about what's going on in that ecosystem. And so for me, two of the sectors that have stood out are the health and then the women empowerment. And so health, even before COVID hit, has been an essential concern for everyone because the healthcare systems in various African countries often fail us. And so people have tried to find ways of bringing health services to those who would otherwise not get access to it or would find it very expensive. So finding simpler ways using technology, like through short codes or USSD codes, simple apps that can be understood by the fairly literate. So that's one. And then in terms of women empowerment, is also in the way that the let's say people are employed. And so making more deliberate steps into employing and finding job opportunities for marginalized women in the communities, making sure that they have skills that they need to actually be employable in certain contexts, especially those in the more rural areas. And I think in general, for me, the impact that creates is more of the confidence that it builds, because sometimes the only thing holding a person back from doing what they have to do is the confidence to do it, not necessarily that they lack the ability. And so these are just a few of the things that have stood out to me in recent times.
Great, thank you so much. I think we will also like to dig a bit deeper, Essie, especially as you are involved in talent identification and recruitment on the African continent. I think that's one fascinating area to share with our audience in terms of what are the trends that you're seeing, but also what are the kind of important skills and competencies, like you have mentioned, and behavioral competencies that are going to be important to move our continent forward. And you've just mentioned one of them being confidence as one of those key ingredients. And I think perhaps there's not so much that is known about the African continent, a basket of skills across. A lot has been written about social entrepreneurship in other parts of the world. And we ourselves know of many social entrepreneurs that have come from the global north. But perhaps we, as part of changing the narrative on the course of our continent's development, we are the ones, right, that we've been waiting for, that we need to start to share about these things and identify and say, these are the skills that we have on the African continent, but this is the journey that we still need to move forward for us to be able to reach where we want to go. So thanks for that, Essie. And Lemogang, getting back to you, we spoke about the disruption that has been brought about by COVID-19. And we are aware that also Botswana has not been spared from this pandemic. In fact, this very afternoon, President Ramaphosa, speaking as the chairperson of the African Union, has spoken about how the pandemic is sharply increasing on our African continent. I think for a while we thought actually that we are being spared, but it does look like from the discussions held this afternoon by the African Union and the WHO, that we are in the early phases of the peak of this virus. So a lot of our lives have changed and will continue to change. I want to hear from you, Lemogang, to say, how has your work been affected as a business person, the way that you engage with your clients, especially now that we have to work more virtually? How are you grappling with those challenges in the context of lockdown?
Thank you so much, Melon. My day-to-day business has been affected because, like I said earlier, what happens is we bring in people into our country. So right now, everything has been stopped. So no movement, nothing. So yeah, that's my day-to-day business that has been affected. And currently, there's nothing happening. There's nothing that's going on in my company. But then in terms of IES, the Africa Youth Entrepreneur Summit, where we talk to young people out there. Listen, we have Zoom, we have your Google Geo, we have everything. So in that aspect, we've managed to put together whatever it is that we put a platform where we can now communicate with these people on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. We also have Facebook. We have all those platforms that we engage with young people and other leaders that we have in our ecosystem, like I said earlier. So with that one, we're okay. We're actually just jumping onto the digital transformation that we've been preaching about for the past how many years? So many years, yeah. Let me just mention this. In this year's IES, our theme was upskilling industries' workforces in preparation for Africa's digital transformation. As if we knew this was going to be happening, we prepared ourselves. We prepared ourselves for this kind of a crisis. So basically, what happens also during IES, we get to invite people who are just out there and then live stream our events. We've actually been just trying to get this virtual thing going on. We've been trying to get this digital transformation thing going on. So it didn't affect us that much, but yes, obviously it's going to be that pinch. But I won't say it has affected our organization that much. We still carry on as usual.
Great, thanks for that, Lemogang. And I think Emanual, also, I will ask you to share on the same point. How has been your work been affected? I know also you're a full-time PhD student, but you're also involved in coaching young people. In this context where face-to-face interaction has been limited or not possible completely, what are the challenges that you've been seeing, but also what are some of the innovative solutions that are being talked about and that are being piloted to ensure that life continues and that we actually leapfrog to that great new digital world that Lemogang has shared with us?
Thanks. So I think when it comes to the work of the hubs that are working in the ecosystem, most of them are switching to using the visual space to continue with their coaching and mentoring. And so currently some have even set up a mentors network where they now meet mentors online. Used to be face-to-face. So now the effect is that the number of people who used to register for some of the mentoring programs with these hubs of social enterprises has also reduced. But before when Ghana had a lockdown, there were a couple of times that people were doing some of the programs online using Zoom and other virtual platforms. So I think there's been an impact on the participation as well, but there's also been some innovations coming from the youth, some of the social entrepreneurs. Some have come out with some protocol PPEs that are being used in Ghana. There was one current person who developed one of the washing machines, which I would say the Veronica bucket and the government have to hail it. So some of the young people have taken advantage of the COVID situation, have come up with some innovations. But when it comes to the ecosystem, there has been few engagement happening with some of the stakeholders in the ecosystem. I remember that last 2 months, there were supposed to be some engagement on entrepreneurship policy to have Ghana to have its own policy for social enterprises. And so that was to help those in the ecosystem be seen that they are not companies or non-profits. Because of the COVID, this engagement had to be postponed. And now there's been done at the local level, but it's also affecting the timelines for it to be maybe taken to Parliament, for it to be passed as something that will protect or help the entrepreneurs. So some of the policy engagements are also being affected because of the delays in this work. But in as much as some young people are also seeing that as one impact in regards to the participation, engagement being affected, and also affecting some I would say returns for some of the organization, because those who are able to train young people over 100 and 200 and getting returns on that. Now you can only train 10 people or 5 people. You can engage too many people in your hub or in a space. And because you also have to do some kind of protocols by having this social distancing. So with the distancing you have to, if your hub space could train maybe like 50 people, now you have to also give some space, 1 meter, and we may train 20. So it also affects some of the returns to the social entrepreneurs. The last thing I'll also mention is that I think the COVID has also opened way for a lot of collaboration and partnership amongst all the social entrepreneurs. And now most of them have begun connecting on the visual space. There were some of the hubs that myself, I consult to some of the hubs and when it comes to developing their partnership models and others. But then through this COVID, we got to know that there were some that are the grassroots working, but they were not known. And then because they now joined some of the Zoom engagement. So I think that is also giving some visibility to some organizations, some young people, young talented people who are also out there, because now there's that connection with the media, not only the digital media, both the traditional media has also come into this work and this ecosystem, working with the social entrepreneurs to also bring out some of the things they are doing. So that's that kind of positive and negative effects, impact on the ecosystem. But I can see that now most of the social entrepreneurs and social enterprises, especially those in the spaces, are now making more innovations coming to the space with some of the things they do by using the visual space and also working together as not going alone. And most of them are now saying, okay, if I'm training 100 people in Accra, in Kumasi, then I can now give you maybe train 50 or train this. So I think there's this snap connection happening. And the last thing I'll mention is that there's also a shift in the funding mechanism, or I would say the investment mechanism for some of these businesses. Now, most of businesses that were not even tech are now beginning to look at tech opportunities, and some of them too are receiving some capacity support from the hubs. There are some 2 hubs that were founded recently in the community where we work, and because of the COVID situation, we have to involve them in the things that we're doing. And now their staff are receiving capacity to also push some of their programs online for them to also reach the community and some of the members in where they are working with. So I think this is what I'll add up into the discussion as well.
Thank you so much for sharing on that, Emanual. And it's good to know that it's not all doom and gloom, that in the midst of all these challenges, there's actually, especially young people on our continent, keeping on working and looking for solutions and silver linings amidst this dark clouds. And so these are lessons that are important to continue sharing as we move on and create a new future. Because as we said earlier on, there is no going back right to the years before COVID. That one is gone. And part of our challenge right now is to create a new future that we all want to live in and that we all want to bequeath to the next generation. And I want now to bring in our audience. They've been sending in questions that I want to share with you, my fellow panelists, and get your insights and experiences. The first one I want to share is coming from Lee, who says social entrepreneurship needs to become a viable career choice. What are the skills that the panelists feel citizens will need in order to sharpen, or that they will need to sharpen so that they can grow sustainable enterprises? And perhaps we'll start with you, Essie. And you're right, you're in the right business, because you're in the business for identifying talent and recruitment. And I think you already started a little bit talking about the importance of confidence. But as we move now in this future, which will mostly be digital based, what are those kind of skills that you think are going to be very critical for a young person in any part of our continent to sharpen and enable them to sustain their social enterprises? Essie.
Thank you. So the truth is that you can pick any skill whatsoever and become very good at it. I say this because there are many different problems on our continent, and what you need to do as an individual is to find what motivates you, what drives you crazy, what you're passionate about, and then work towards it. And let me give an example. For example, it could even be beauty or fashion, something of the sort. So you become an expert at it and then find a way of making an impact through your specialty. So rather than being just any regular beauty company, you can be a beauty company that also advocates for women's sexual health or inclusivity in whatever area it is. Okay, this is just a random example. So find what you love and then work towards becoming very good at it. Now, the plot twist is that be close to technology. I think that it is almost impossible to run anything that you want to be successful without having that hint of technology. And it doesn't always have to be hard coding, although it's always is a very essential skill to have. You could go into social media marketing or, something along those lines. So technology skills are always a great thing to have. And for my specific, area of work, when I'm looking through an application, I'm looking out for tech skills first. And then what will actually make me say yes to a candidate is that they have something special about them, something that they're doing differently. And I think it's very, I won't say easy, but it's easier now to find webinars to join and training programs, workshops, even if it's just for a few weeks. Try your hands on something, do a free course online, and yeah, it will make a lot of difference in this time.
Fantastic, and I hope all the young people there are also listening, because these are very important attributes and skills that are going to be crucial. As you know, that almost every country is being hit by economic recession and depression in the coming months to years, and it's going to be very important to dig very deep. And I like that you say, find what you love and what you're passionate about, and then use that and strengthen that to be your special value addition in transforming, yourself, but also as a skill that will add value to the work that you can bring in your community. So from SC, I also want to switch to Lemogang. And yeah, on the same score, Lemogang, if somebody is coming to you to add to the enterprise that you founded with your associates, what are the kind of skills that you are looking at? And what are those skills that you'll be encouraging other young African entrepreneurs to sharpen at this moment in time for us to be able to go to the next step in our development?
Hi. First of all, you have to have the heart for it, because for many years we didn't understand what social entrepreneurship meant in Africa. I don't know about the rest of the world, but in Africa, especially my country, we didn't really understand what social entrepreneurship meant. I got into business with the mindset of going to make money. That was it. That was all I ever wanted to do. But then when I went on and months passed, I told myself, listen, it's no longer about money, but having social impact. The money will come, but I'll have to stamp my name on social impact side. So first of all, you have to have the heart for it, because it's not going to be easy, and you are not always going to have followers. Sometimes you're going to be alone doing this. People are going to think you're crazy because you're doing this. There's no money involved, but you're trying to improve other people's lives. What is happening? Are you trying to? Sometimes people would think, are you trying to cheat people? Are you trying to, whatever it is that you have on your mind, what are you trying to do? So that's my first point. The second point is, when you're getting into the social entrepreneurship thing, you have to have the mindset for it. You have to have the right skills, the right mindset, have the mindset of a social, a socioeconomic aspect, know what you're getting into, and know that, it might not bring the results that you wanted, but it might change another person's life. So whatever it is that you're getting into, you should know exactly how you want it to turn out. So I think that's the little that I want to share with regards to that.
That's already a big something, Lemogang, and as one of our previous panelists said, that sometimes solutions don't come from the big things. Our solutions to our problems actually come from those small, mundane things in our day-to-day lives. That's where change is made. And so thank you so much for sharing on that one. Emanual, to you. You have heard what our fellow panelists have said. Perhaps you could also share from the work that you have done with young people in Ghana to say what are some of those important skills as a coach and a mentor that you encourage young people to sharpen. And as you do that, there's a question from Ilana who is asking, where are the two hubs that you mentioned? And if you could also, Emanuel, just give another example of one of those initiatives that a social entrepreneur that you've worked with has come up with to address a problem, one that always caught your attention and you would like to share with us.
Thank you. So Elena, the two hubs, one hub is based in Ghana in Kumasi. It's called Women in Art, Tourism and Hospitality Hub. What hub is women focused hub, which is in the middle of Ghana. The second one is Agrico Hub, which is based in one of the new regions in Ghana. It's focused on agriculture. So if in case you want to be connected with any of them, you can also learn from their experience as well. So I want to mention that I think AC mentioned one thing that is key: passion. Passion is one skills that I would just want to emphasize on the better. And I want to say that we need to develop our communication skills, because now either you're using the digital space or the traditional way of communicating with your community, with your stakeholders, the kind of stakeholders like the media. I give an example of a current program that was organized, and the media has to take an amount of money from some of the hubs. So when they engage the media that we are just giving back to the community, we don't have money now, we are starting a new business, we are startups, and we need to be able to work with the community. The media were able to give them a pro bono. And I give, it's one of the things that for almost a week, they were invited to be on the TV station to share some of the things they were doing. But so our communication skills need to be also be taken into consideration, building that as well, how to engage, what some of the lobbying skills you need to have. We also have to look at our design thinking approach. If you know how to also be in the space to take you through the design thinking process to be able to come out with some solutions for certain problems that are identified in companies. I have one person, entrepreneur, who came up with a solution and an already existing business. So this entrepreneur went to a company and they were working such that they were getting customers. They were able to sustain the interest of the customers. So he came up with a model and created a platform to engage the customers, and customers get feedback from them. And now he's done working with a company, but managing his own content of business along with that organization. So I think it's good to also appreciate how to go through the design thinking to know what problems some companies are facing, some communities are also facing. And the last I'll mention is the partnership skills. I would say skills is important because some people now want to do things alone. There are many hubs, many organizations, many social entrepreneurs that they still want to do things alone. And because of that, it's affecting their growth and even their sustainability model. So if you want to work with it, there are some who are good in technology, you are in fashion industry, you are in any other industry, you want to work with others, you just come together and say and find means to how to complement each other by looking at the SWOT analysis and how you can work together to also come up with some innovations to be able to meet the expectations from some of the communities we work in. So I think that's the key thing I'll mention in regards to that. So there's this new hub in Ghana, which is Women Having, and that is one exceptional lady who has also graduated to become a global shaper. Now she sits on the Ghana hubs as a member of the board that has also been supported in that. There is this brother of us, I will say a brother because his innovation came through some of the competition, who developed an app to assist farmers to mitigate the losses in the farms from the harvest. So he won the Ghana mobile app hackathon that was organized last year. And then now he's also a trainer for the grassroots hub where I co-founded, and at the same time he's managing his own business in the IT industry. So the kind of some young people who have started without nothing, he came into the space just innovating and then came into the competition and receiving that startup support. Now he has also employed other people working in his company. So I think it's good to be able to identify which way you want to go by looking at your passion and as well as looking at the team player. I mean, it's good. I didn't mention that, but the human resource and team players, working is also important. If you can work with different team in your space, when you are able to come up with some innovations, you need someone to help with your comms, your HR, your risk, and your partnerships. And if you can do it alone, you will need all these people to be able to succeed in your enterprise or your business ideas.
Wow, fantastic, Emmanuel. That's quite a lot of food for thought there that you've given us to digest. But again, if I could only pick one from the last sharing you have with us, is that out of this crisis, the lesson we have learned for reinforcement is the importance of partnerships and teamwork. And especially now that when we are not together physically, and when we have to remain a team when we are separated and we're working through digital spaces, becomes even more important. And you've seen it with governments, etc., that they found that you can't have a solution from one entity. So political leaders have to work with scientists, they have to work with people in law and order, they have to work with health practitioners, they have to work with people who provide public transport and so on and so forth. But I think at the micro level, this is also a lesson for all of us in small social enterprises, in small NGOs, in small community organizations as well. That is going to be important for us if we're going to survive. that we remain united and we encourage those elements. And so for all the young people as well that are working that, find a team that you belong to and work with that team to achieve common success. So thank you again to our audience. There's lots of questions that are coming through that I would like us to have a chance to delve into. And the first one I'm going to ask you, SC, to help us with. It comes from Lusungu. And Lusungu says that gender has been identified as a challenge in the Southern Africa Trust interaction and work with young people, for example, in the Comoros. What are some potential solutions that can be shared in achieving an engendered social entrepreneurship? So perhaps, if I'm understanding what Lusungu is saying, if you've got any ideas on potential solutions that can help us to build social enterprises that address or that are inclusive of the concerns that are raised in terms of gender justice and equality of the sexes.
All right, thank you for that. I'm gonna speak mostly on what the situation looks like in the tech space in Africa. And I must say that the main solution right now is for organizations to be more deliberate about looking out for female talent. Because the problem here lies in the fact that women and girls in general have not been socialized enough to take on risks, firstly, and also to enter the tech and scientific spaces. So from that perspective, it's just about deliberate effort in encouraging women and girls, and also having a close connection with existing communities that do this as well. So it's easy to say that there are a lot of men in the tech field, but there are also a lot of women who are doing amazing things, who need to be encouraged and need to be supported in several ways. I have to say, admit though, it's a very slow process. It's kind of like, imagine the era where women were not going to school or didn't have the right to vote and stuff like that. So it's a very gradual process, but we're going to get there. And I mentioned this before in terms of making an extra effort also into employing women and bringing them on board. All of these come with their challenges, obviously, but I think the solution is in the effort that it takes. And additionally, there are a lot of problems that are centered around women. So when we talk about social entrepreneurship, a good amount of social enterprises are to do with women, because the problems are from today till tomorrow for a long time. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity in helping women, and so in deliberate efforts taken one step at a time, it's gonna make a big difference.
Thanks so much, Essie. Because we've got so many questions, I'm going to ask you guys to give very brief responses. Of course, allowing you to say what's on your mind. So perhaps 2 to 3 minutes for the next ones that are coming through. I want to go to Lemogang to respond to a question from Masego. Masako is the CEO of the Southern Africa Trust. She asks, Lemogang, personally, why did you feel compelled to go beyond profit objectives? As you mentioned, when you started out, you wanted to make money, and then something happened, something tweaked in your journey, and you felt compelled to go beyond profit objectives. So what was the drive for you behind the change in your business objectives?
Thank you so much for that question. It's actually very close to my heart. Such questions are very close to my heart. The things that I went through during my entrepreneurship journey, from me graduating at the University of Botswana in political science, and then me jumping into entrepreneurship, the challenges that I've met, everything that I went through, for like 3 years, 2 years, I sat down and thought to myself, other young people are going to go through the same things. What am I here for? I think the first question that I asked was, what am I here for, and what am I going to be remembered with? Am I just going to be remembered with Lemogang being that young entrepreneur who was doing this company? And then do I also want to be remembered as the Lemogang Senwelo, who advocated for the young people and who wanted to make changes for the young people that are coming from behind and want to do the same things that I'm supposed to be doing. So I just wanted to pave way for my fellow young entrepreneurs and make things better for them. Build a proper environment for them, and I don't want young people in my country suffering the way I suffered or meeting the challenges that I've met, because it's not a good thing. It was bad. So that's the first thing that I say to myself. I don't want these people to suffer. I don't want people to face the challenges that I face. They're just challenges that can be fixed. And I say to myself, I can fix these things. So yeah, that's how I started this journey.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Lemogang. And yeah, we hope we continue to be in contact and have a multiplier effect so that you can continue to infect other young people in a productive and positive way, so to speak. My colleagues, I also want to share, there's a comment and a question that's come from Tumiso, and it's regarding issue of collaboration and individualism. So I want to put that question to you, Emanual. Tumiso says, what have been some of the challenges associated with collaborations between social entrepreneurs and collaboration between social entrepreneurs in the private sector? So that's a specific question that he has put, but he has also put a comment on the question on the issue of individualism as a challenge and as an obstacle towards transformative change coming from social enterprises. Emanual, on collaboration.
Great. So we'll try to answer both in different angles. So the first point is about governance and trust. So some private sectors or people you want to work with want to see the systems that you put in place to check the funding or maybe some of your returns, businesses coming. Is it owned by yourself? Do you have all the systems there? Do you have all the governance structures? And so all those paperwork in important document procedures guiding your organization are needed, and also to be able to build the trust. The other thing I'll mention is about success stories or track record. Some private organizations want to see what you're already doing and be able to also be able to support you or work with you as well. So you need to be able to map out what the small thing that you did you're doing in the community. If you train or you did something in a community that affected one person, is it something that you can share as a success story which you want to build on? So it's not just starting in a huge one, start small and then build on that or to also impact more. So other thing is to also be able to identify the interest of your partners and also the private sector. So if you're working with a partner or the private sector or a community, you need to identify the interest. Maybe some of them want to support or collaborate with as part of their CSR, which is corporate social responsibility. But then what do they want to gain? They want the community to see that they are giving back. So do you also build a model to be able to share some of the things that the private organizations are also doing? Because sometimes we are coming as social entrepreneurs, you come with the solutions for the private sector for them to partner with you. So if you are working on advocacy, you need to be clear with that. If you're working with impact, you need to share some kind of matrices, some kind of pillars that you are also able to meet to share with them this what you're doing so that they'll continue to engage with you. So I think it's a big issue about governance, trust, and also success stories and interest. It's important when it comes to working in collaboration, whether individual or private sector.
Thank you very much, Emanual. And I think I want to swiftly shift gears and go to you, Essie, on the subject of mental health among social entrepreneurs. And that's a question that's coming from Stigmata, from the African Philanthropy Network. And she asks and says that we know that mental health challenges are on the increase during COVID-19. What are some of the support strategies that have worked or that you think will work for young entrepreneurs?
Oh, thanks for that. Mental health is also one issue that is very close to my heart. And so it's, well, mainly because there's an increasing wave of awareness around the stigma that should be removed from mental health, and encouraging young people to take it more seriously and try and be more reflective about what the state of their mental health is. And it goes without saying that in this current times, there's a lot going on mentally, especially for people who are entrepreneurs, because once the entire thing hits, borders closed, everything came to a standstill. And so anybody with a job, or anybody actually without a job, so if you are working for yourself and you need to be out there, everything's going to come to a standstill. Well, it affected more people negatively than positively. And so over a period of time, your mental health becomes an issue because you're not as successful as you used to be. The numbers aren't adding up, and you don't know where your next client is going to come from. So I would say that for us here, we do have arrangements for mental health, like psychologists and life coaches. My advice would be that look in your immediate community and see where you can find help. I think a conversation could even start with a close friend or an adult person that you can start speaking to. And then from there, you can look into a lot of online platforms for counseling that you can look into. I don't want to recommend anything out there, but yeah, I think what we do take for granted is talking to someone at all. So you don't always have to go the extra step to find a counselor. You can start with your family or your close friends around you, and then from there, work your way towards getting comfortable speaking with a stranger about what's going on. And finally, it may seem that you may seem fine at first, especially entrepreneurs. You want to go out there, you feel like you're okay, but most often you're not. And so just acknowledge it. There's nothing wrong with seeking help when you need it.
Thanks so much for sharing, Essie. Lemogang, perhaps your own also personal reflections on the challenges around mental health, particularly in this crisis. How do you, what strategies do you put up personally for yourself to keep yourself sharp and strong despite all the challenges? You mentioned that your business is about bringing people, but that's suddenly crashed down because of the lockdowns. How do you support yourselves and how do you support others in this context?
Thank you so much for bringing that up. Mental health is one of those issues that are very close to my heart. In 2016, I founded an NGO which spoke to depression victims, young people, old people, women, and all the like. So it's actually one of those topics that I really have a close heart to. So right now, like I said earlier, it's not really close shop, but whatever it is that's happening, it has obviously affected me in various ways. One, it has affected my finances, and we have to pay bills, we have to pay employees, we have to pay whatever it is that we should be paying right now. I try by all means to keep myself sane. I talk to my coaches, I talk to my mentors, I talk to my employees. Like Essie said, it's always best to talk to somebody because you'd never know what that particular moment, what somebody can do for you or what they can say to you to motivate you and do something with whatever it is situation that you're going through. Sorry. So yeah, talking to people has really helped me a lot. Also just keeping busy with other initiatives that are coming up in the next few months, it has also helped. So yeah, I'm just trying to remain sane. I'm not trying to see this thing as a negative impact towards me, but I'm just seeing it as something, to make me improve onto other things and other initiatives.
Thank you so much, Lemogang. And I'm going to ask our audience to please bear with us. We should be closing down in a minute, but I would just ask if we could please have the last 8 minutes to wrap up. And also because there's another question that we will need to address as we finish up. So with your indulgence, please hang on and remain online. And then in 8 minutes, we will bring this fascinating conversation to an end. So there's a question that's come from Tembekile. And I want to pose this one to you, Emanual. And Tembekile says, how can social entrepreneurship be efficiently adopted in eco-politically unstable economies like Zimbabwe and Sudan, etc., etc.? Emanual, if you can answer that one in a minute and a half.
Good. So I'll start by saying start with policy engagement. If it's possible to identify some of the social entrepreneur players in the ecosystem to come together as a network or team working together to engage stakeholders to have certain missing policies to guide some of your engagement. In as much as some political organizations will want to see what is happening in the ecosystem, it is important to also be able to work with them. I can give an example in Ghana that there is a project that is a government initiative, which is any national entrepreneurship innovation program. But this has been engineered by social entrepreneurs. They came together and engaged the government with the Ministry of Communication that this is what the young people want to do. So I think it's an issue of policy engagement where we need to start advocacy and in any level, but also building also leaders in the space is also important. I think AC mentioned something which I wanted to add, which can answer both. If you want to engage young people or women in the entrepreneurship ecosystem, we need to start identifying some of the exceptional young women to also build their leadership skills, to get them on the table, work with some of this policy advocacy team, and also be able to bring out what is in them to also inform decisions so that economically we can identify new areas where some of the government or some of the officials have to invest in. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Emmanuel, for that, short and crisp. And so as we wind down this this conversation, I want to ask each one of you, and it's in 3 layers. We always want to end this conversation with getting your insights about the Africa you want, right? So I think from Essie to Lemogang, and then we'll end with Emanuel. I want to ask you to paint a picture of the Africa of your dreams, the one that after all of this is said and done, that's the one you want to step out into. But as you do that, also just a suggestion on how do we ensure that this Africa will belong to everybody, that as we create this new future, we will not leave anyone behind, especially those communities that have been for far too long marginalized and not included in our development course. So I'll start with you, Essie.
Wow, I must say that is a very profound question. So the Africa that I want, to paint a picture of that. So I think I would start by saying that the Africa that I imagine would be one that has finally won from such a, I don't know, global event. So you know how usually after all these wars and things happen, Africa is the one to suffer. I'm very much hoping that after all of this is over, this time we have a step forward and we are probably pulling the strings and calling the shots. You know, in a position of more power than before. So that's the Africa that I want after all of this. And how will it belong to everyone? I think the entire pandemic has provoked people to try harder things or, you know, become more innovative. And, you know, with all these drone deliveries and things going on, maybe how I see it, including everyone, is by bringing it into the light. So I say this because you know how when you're looking at maps saying maybe internet connectivity around the world, you see like the entire Europe, America, all of those places are so lit up, like everywhere is bright, but then Africa has like a few dots in South Africa, Ghana, and maybe whatever, and then everywhere else is dark. So hopefully this entire thing will evolve and bring us into the light for positive things, obviously. So to answer your very profound question, this is what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Essie, and it's a profound answer. Power and light to Africa. Thanks for that. Lemogang, your Africa.
I'm sorry about that, Miss Thing. I was trying to charge my phone; it was going off. But anyway, I'm a woman of very few words. I've always said this to everyone. My Africa is where young people are being listened to. Young people are given a platform. Young people are given opportunities, to tap into. You don't need to be fighting every day when we wake up to fight for opportunities. Can opportunities just be brought, somehow or some way, can they just be brought to us as much as they're being brought to other parties? Can young people be listened to? Can young people just be given that voice that they need? Because like I said earlier, we have so much potential, we have so much things, we have so much that we can do for this continent. I listen to all different kinds of entrepreneurs on a daily basis, from Ghana, from South Africa, from Nigeria, Tanzania, everywhere I listen to entrepreneurs. The only thing that they lack is the voice. They don't have the voice. African leadership don't give entrepreneurs the voice that young entrepreneurs the voice that they need. So my last words would be, let young entrepreneurs be given the platform for them to to carry out whatever it is that they want to do.
Thank you so much, Lemogang, for that one. Even as you say, a woman of few words, but again, profound sharing as well. And that confirms what our partners at the Kunasama Shell Trust always say. They say the future is African and the future is female. And so there it is in our conversation today as well, coming from you and Essie. So I want to finish with you, Emanual, and first to share a comment from one of our colleagues, More Blessing, who's also a young person. And she says, thank you so much for sharing, especially explaining what social entrepreneurship is, and that you raised a crucial issue around youth coming up with ideas to enhance sustainability for their initiatives and not relying on grants. And I think that's really where we want to take the conversation to. We want to have the conversation be about African young people bringing solutions to address the problems in our communities and in our context, and changing the narrative from us relying on external support to us looking within and looking to the small to address the big. So that's the comment that's coming from More Blessing to you, Emanual. And so lastly, the same question I think you had that Essie and Lemogang responded to. Your Africa, Emanual, after all of this is over, what does it look like? And what should we do to ensure that nobody is left behind?
Thank you. So I think I'll be able to answer the question, and by responding to that, Rich can respond to the question as well. Like he said, I want to see an African where available resources are identified, and then these resources are made use to respond to the needs of the people, the vulnerable, and each person in the community. I'm looking out for an African where we can build our human capital to respond to the changing environment. So I'm hoping that if we pay attention to our human capital, we're able to also solve some of the problems. The last thing, which Lemogang also mentioned, is about still giving the space to young people. But I also want to see an African where young people understand their potential. Sometimes we do say young people are not heard. We give them this chance. But then the thing is that the ability for young people to work together to also articulate their potentials, seeing what they can do is also important. So I want to see an African where young people, when they have the chance to be on the table, agree to work together, working alongside with stakeholders, and also be able to use the talents that they have to be able to make a change where they are. So, and responding to my other person who raised that question, I think just as I mentioned, it's so important that we continue to find solutions to be able to meet some of the challenges that we face in the communities and where we work. So once you start as a social entrepreneur, you need to be solving problems. Social entrepreneurs solve problems. It's about solution. It's about solutions. So you need to define your value proposition you are in, what network building you are you're working along with some of the changing mechanisms in the space. So once you're able to identify this and work with these systems and be able to mobilize all the human capital, the resources, the talents that are there, I would just end by mentioning something that I've never encountered before when I started working in social entrepreneurship space. Just this year after the COVID, we did a call on some of social media pages and an email by young people who want to volunteer or do an internship. And we see over 200 people, which has not happened before. It means that there are many young people out there who are talented and want to give their time. They want to give some of their skilled experiences to solve solutions, not just volunteer by saying they are doing something without being paid, but there are people that we can bring them to our table to build a team with them, that they are ready to work with you. We are paying them at the initial stage, which they can help you begin. So I would say that not relying on grants doesn't mean you don't need funding, because sometimes you may even have to pitch and receive some support as a startup, but then you're able to some of the things that cut down some of the costs when you are able to collaborate, you're able to work with the team, you're able to identify some people that are also able to enhance your work effort by building a good team and alongside seeing one of your weaknesses. So I think these are the few things that I'll add up. Thank you.
Thank you so much to you, Emanual. Thank you, Essie. Thank you, Lemogang, and thank you to our audience today. We had a fascinating conversation that I hope has helped to shed some light on the question of youth social entrepreneurship on the continent of Africa, so that we know that there are solutions and innovations that are being driven by young African people, despite all the deluge of bad news, desperate news, and in the midst of the pandemic, in the COVID-19 pandemic, that the African continent is alive and well, and its young people are taking it forward. Today, you have shared about power and lights, seeing an Africa that gives voice and platforms to its young people, an Africa that builds human capital, an Africa that takes care of its environment, an Africa that looks at bringing solutions from within, an Africa that's built on partnerships and teamwork, for us to be able to forge a new future that we all deserve, and that will make sure that no community is left behind. So I want to thank all of you, and as we go forward, also to encourage all young social entrepreneurship, that even if you face challenges, and as they say, over 80% of new social enterprises do fail and face challenges in their first few months of existence, but that's no reason to throw it all up and give up. Seek partnerships and seek mentorship and seek solidarity and collaboration with others that will help you, to strengthen you, and to make sure that you keep your dream alive. I want to thank all of you for joining us, and I want to invite you to join us again in next week's edition of the Society Talks webinar series. Thank you so much, and good night to all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.